Hello again! In last week's vlog I showed you my visit to the beautiful Egeskov Castle in Denmark. And the reason for my visit there was, of course, the famous doll's house that's exhibited there, Titania's palace. And in that vlog I showed you the part of the doll's house with the private rooms of the fairy queen Titania and her husband Oberon. And in this vlog I will show you the more public or official or state rooms, if you will, of the palace. So part 1 of my tour of Titania's palace ended here in Queen Titania's boudoir. And now if we move to the left, we come to the corner of the building. And what room will we find here? Did you see what was in the window? And what would these types of windows hide? And to top it all off, we see a belfry. And this belfry was designed by none other than Sir Edwin Lutyens. Well, of course, below this wonderful bell tower, we find the chapel. And apparently Queen Titania gains access from her boudoir to this, her private oratory, through a secret panel. I think it might be that door on the left there. It looks like it's slightly ajar. Notice the stunning decorations on the walls and ceiling. And it's a bit hard to see, but there are beautifully painted icons adorning the golden molding. In the foreground of the chapel there's a wonderful little carved shrine. It looks German to me, partly because the letters spell alle, which means all or everybody in German. But I don't know, it could be initials or mean something else. Next to the little shrine, some religious books are displayed. Now, when I was here 9 years ago, the books were displayed differently, and it was much easier to see how beautiful they are. I particularly liked the illuminated manuscript, which was displayed on the lectern back then. On the right, we can just about see the wonderful organ, which unfortunately I was unable to get a better picture of. The white lilies, I believe, are a reference to the Virgin Mary, as the flower symbolizes chastity, virginity, and purity. And here we can finally get a better look at those stained glass windows we saw earlier on the outside. They're beautiful. To the left of the chapel we find the Hall of the Fairy Kiss. And above a silver coat of arms we see the motto displayed, Nihil sine labore, which means nothing without hard work, which is certainly true for Titania's palace. In this hall The highest order of the fairy world is kept in a glass case. It's a miniature insignia of the Grand Cross of the Fairy Kiss, surmounted by a crown. To its left is a late 18th century Tibetan statue of the multi-armed Jamantaka with his Satki. Jamantaka is a Buddhist deity tasked with instilling terror in the evil spirit of death. Now, I'm not entirely sure what this statue signifies here in the Hall of the Fairy Kiss, but Sir Nevile was heavily inspired by tales of magic and the supernatural. On the walls are miniature portraits of Queen Alexandra and Queen Mary, painted by Sir Nevile. Above it, a beautifully embroidered banner, again with the motto Nihil sine labore and the date 1922. The motto is repeated on the banner on the left of the room. Below the Queen's portrait is a small embroidery or tapestry, of which I'm quite sure it was inspired by the Lady and the Unicorn tapestries, which can be found in the Musée de Cluny in Paris. On the right, through a set of double doors with a beautifully carved door surround, we can just about see the garden that's in the center of the doll's house. And throughout the doll's house you can catch glimpses of the garden through windows and doors. And speaking of doors, on the far right here, and you can only see part of it, again, because of the glare, I didn't get a good shot of it, but it is worth mentioning. The door into the chapel is framed in superb hand-wrought silver. To the left of the Hall of the Fairy Kiss is the Hall of the Guilds, and this is the formal entry to the palace. Titania's palace was designed primarily to raise money for charity, and in the 1920s and 30s Titania's palace went on display in many places throughout the world. The banners you see here along the top of the room represent places Titania's palace visited during its world tours, like the USA, Canada, South America, Australia, New Zealand, and the Netherlands. There are many wonderful miniatures to see here, but perhaps one of the most interesting miniatures is this small bronze gilt cannon from about 1580. It's a working model made by Michael Mann, armorer of Nuremberg. Another interesting miniature is this tiny treasure chest. It has a complete and working lock in the lid, and I read somewhere that this is the work of a 15th century Nuremberg craftsman, but it is very similar to the work of Michael Mann again, so it could be 16th or early 17th century. Either way, it's wonderful. But in my opinion, the most beautiful miniature is centrally displayed in the room, and it is this very special late 18th century Swiss piece. A golden mechanical fountain set with small diamonds with a blue enamel background and a gold canopy. The piece has a clockwork mechanism in the interior. How I would love to see that working. On the walls of the rooms are images of winged figures. And I thought these were paintings, but apparently they are tapestries. And these pretty maids all in a row hold shields with the arms of the great guilds of handicraft. Through the double doors we can enter a throne room. The ceiling, walls and mosaic floor were again all hand-painted by Sir Nevile Wilkinson. In a handbook on Titania's palace, written by Sir Nevile, it says, "On the mosaic pavement in front of the throne is inscribed the dedication of the palace to the crippled children for whom it was built, written in Greek. Silver and gold I have none, but what I have I give thee." Through the fantastic bronze doors and the windows on the back wall, you can catch glimpses of the garden known as Cupid's Court, with its statue and central fountain. Above the bronze doors is a beautiful clock, designed by Sir Nevile using an old French watch. And here again we can see the motto, "Nothing without hard work." The throne room is filled with potted flowers made of brass, beautiful woodwork and wonderful miniature objects. And then of course there's the throne itself, made of ebony and ivory, surmounted by two 16th century miniature Italian gold figures attributed to Benvenuto Cellini. Again, the accursed reflection wouldn't let me take a good picture of it, but you can just spot it here. The back of the throne is formed by a peacock encrusted in diamonds, rubies, emeralds and sapphires. The throne stands under a glass canopy on which a second diamond peacock is perched. And this stunning jewel once belonged to a Hindu queen. The last room in the palace, which is more of a private room than a public one, is Oberon's museum, which displays precious miniatures from all over the world gifted to Titania. Here we can see the finest collection of miniature Bristol glass, also glass from Bohemia and Murano glass. There's a Ming temple bell and many pieces of fine Chinese porcelain. On the left here we see another Nuremberg chest, this time with the lid open to show off the intricate workings of the lock. Of course, in these last photos you have probably noticed the wonderful inlaid parquet flooring and what looks to be Tunbridge ware wall paneling. And so we have reached the end of my tour of Titania's palace. Even though it was hard to see at times, I do hope you've enjoyed it. Thank you for watching. Until next time.